Welcome back, everyone, to the Broker Room podcast. I'm Michael Simon, and today I'm being joined by Mike Cherine. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Very happy to have you here. For our audience, Mike is the principal and co-founder of IndyCap, a firm specializing in ground-up institutional industrial development and investment. With a career spanning since 1988, he's developed everything from mixed-use and master plan communities to multifamily, office, retail, and resort projects. Since 2015, he's focused heavily on mid-bay and cross-dock industrial in Las Vegas, Boise, and Phoenix. Following that, in 2021, he co-founded IndyCap with Jason Kuckler, and today they're executing major projects all across the Southwest. So, Mike, thank you again for joining us. Let's dive right in here. Your real estate journey started back in 1988 at Nevada Title Company, moved into escrow, then brokerage in 1990, where you orchestrated land assemblages for home builders and raised private equity through syndication. So going back to the beginning there, how did everything start for you? How did your real estate journey begin, and what led you to where you are today?
I was I'd probably worked 30 jobs before I was 19 or 20 years old. I just always was always busy and I really was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I
Mhm.
think what I learned is what I didn't want to do. So I didn't want to use my back or my hands to make a living. I'd rather use my brain. And so I was going to UNLV and I took a real estate law course. And it really clicked for me. And so that's when I actually quit college and went to go work at the title company in order to get an education on the back workings of a real estate transaction.
Mhm. Excellent. And then from there, what you're doing today. Can you talk a little bit more about, what the day-to-day is like and, what you're focusing on specifically?
Yeah, so we're developers in Arizona, Nevada, and we're branching off into some other states. We're looking at Texas, Utah, and Colorado. But my day to day is I'm kind of an alchemist. I've got to kind of make projects out of nothing. And so I do a lot of research, figure out which markets and submarkets are lacking supply of the type of product that we build. So I'm
Mhm.
always looking at data, um, and I use AI for that. And once I find a submarket that's got a really tight supply of shallow bay industrial, I'll go look for the best piece of real estate there, and then either I'll use a broker or I'll contact the owner myself and negotiate a transaction. So I'm always looking for new deals, and they have to make sense. There's really tight uh, criteria now in order to be able to raise debt and equity for these projects.
Excellent. And so, when you're looking at that data, for new projects, if we take a look at the industrial sector as a whole, especially in markets like Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Boise, it's seen quite some explosive growth. From your vantage point, leading these large scale projects, what are the biggest trends you're seeing right now in institutional industrial development and investment?
Well, there was such a big boom post pandemic in industrial. There was a lot of 3PLs, third-party logistics companies that needed to get space so that they could get products from the manufacturers to us people who were, locked down in our homes. And I think that really kind of changed consumerism when you can just sit on the couch and order something, it's delivered to you. Things like groceries that most people never, would have delivered or being delivered. And so it kind of changed the landscape. And then when SOFR was at zero, the cost of borrowing in 2020 and 2021 was so low that you just saw this blast of debt and equity hitting the market with all these huge projects going on. And so what had happened was we got overbuilt. It tends to happen during these cycles. And now we're, absorbing this large space in most cities in the United States, and what has been overlooked is the small or shallow bay product for smaller businesses. And so you have a really old inventory, 40, 50-year-old inventory. It's typically been too expensive to build, but now we have a window where construction starts are down so low that the costs have come down, and now these deals pencil.
And, speaking to more of the current challenges, that you're facing like that, developing and delivering large institutional industrial projects, I'm sure comes with significant complexity. What would you say, to add on to what you just talked about, are the top challenges you and your team are navigating today, whether it's entitlement, construction costs, capital markets, or just finding the right opportunities?
Yes, you just nailed all of them. I mean, that's literally all of the challenges that we have. You have to find dirt that's in a good location, that has utilities to it, that can be entitled for industrial, because nobody wants industrial next to their house. It's not
Sure.
appealing to have these massive buildings. So finding the dirt and then finding an owner that'll sell it at a marketable price, because the land basis is the beginning of whether the deal is going to pencil or not. Then it's finding a market that isn't oversaturated with supply, and then you've got to go find a capital markets group to help you find the money, and they're going to go try to find an equity group that isn't already overly exposed in the asset class in the market that you're in, meaning they already have buildings they're trying to lease up and sell, so they can't really start anything new until that's done. So you got to find, family offices. You need to find smaller private equity groups that haven't allocated all their funds yet. And you need to, there's lenders that are a dime a dozen. You can always go get a construction loan. The only thing that differentiates between whether the market's hot or not is the height that the leverage you're going to get. So, now it's probably more common to get 55 and 60% leverage where we could get up to 70, 75, even 80 before.
Yeah, and that makes sense given the changes that we've seen here. And one other thing I want to tack on to as well, you mentioned how you're using AI as well for data gathering when we talk about, challenges in the industry. One of the reasons why I started this podcast is because the real estate industry as a whole seemed to be lagging a bit behind others in terms of how they were using AI, implementing it. There was a lot of, curiosity. Some people were more set in their ways, more unlikely to adapt and adjust. I have seen that shift a little bit in recently, like in the past few months or so. And I think as we head into the year further, that's going to change even more at a rapid pace. But everybody uses it for different reasons. You said that you use it for data research yourself. Is there any other, places where you use it for? Could you talk a little bit more about what that research entails when you're trying to find a new project?
Trying to find new projects. So just getting market data, because typically we would wait until we get the quarterly report from the top industrial teams and whatever that market is. And, they come out every quarter. If I need to get a deck put together tomorrow, I'm going to need to go aggregate all that data right now. It's really interesting because data centers are exploding. Trillions of dollars are being spent on them. Typically, they use a lot of water, they use a lot of power. So now people are getting caught up to that and realizing that, they don't want them in their community now. So, you're going to continue to see a lot of capital expenditures on AI. It's going to continue to get faster. I really don't even completely understand how AI works. To me, it's just a search engine. We've used it not only for data, but we're also, starting to use it for either logo creation for projects, for searching for potential partners. Um, so it's going to continue to grow. How it's going to grow, I can't predict what that's going to be like. I don't know what human labor, capital labor is going to be replaced by it in our industry. I don't know that that's the case. Maybe it's architecture, maybe it's title searching. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, that's a very valid concern that, always comes up, when we talk about it here on the podcast. But ultimately, what I found is everybody seems to be in agreement that while AI isn't going to go away anytime soon and it's going to have its place, it depends really on how you use it. So if we're talking about things for strictly automation, like data research, like you just mentioned, or just repetitive tasks like sending out emails, calls, things of that nature. Using AI for that should not be a problem for anyone, really. It's going to make a better experience for you and for the client as well. But again, you can't have too much of a good thing. And ultimately, I don't see a scenario where AI would ever evolve to a point where it's going to completely overtake the process and replace the actual human being doing the transaction. I mean, you will see something random and one off maybe. I don't know if you heard there was a guy down in Florida who actually managed to sell his house solely by using AI. I'm not quite sure how he did it because just the legality and many other factors don't make too much sense to me on that. But if someone were to say that to me and be like, "Oh, do you think this is gonna be the trend or start of something going forward for that?" I would say absolutely not. That's just a residential property we're talking about, and we talk about things on a much grander scale like what you and your company does. You're gonna need a human presence for that. It's a very emotional decision, whether it's gonna be your home, an investment property, what have you. And as developed and you know, sophisticated as AI will become, it's ultimately never going to be able to replace that human interaction that you're going to need. So definitely not worried about it taking over in that capacity.
It's interesting because when we're doing an analysis on a project, AI gets to know you, which is
Yeah.
which is super convenient and a little scary. Because anything that I type in that I'm requesting data from, it already understands the context of what I'm asking, which is
Yep.
interesting. So it'll say pertaining to your industrial strategies. It's been really interesting to do analysis. We've been using it for lease analysis as well.
Mm.
Doing some credit searches. It'll put together a whole report for you, and
Yeah.
it's super time efficient. I'm looking forward to finding ways to make our company more efficient and to make sure that we're on the right path. I mean, this is not an instant gratification business, so development takes years.
Yeah.
So if I start something today, I might not, be able to sell it for 4 or 5 years, and a lot of things can change in that time. So looking at perhaps future market analysis would be more important to me, so that we know that what we're planning on building now is going to be in demand 3 years from now.
Mhm.
So researching trends is important. That's something I would probably be able to utilize now.
Yeah. Yeah, researching trends, market analysis, very common in the, AI solutions world, so to speak. When I founded my AI solutions agency, Quantum Veil AI, I had all this in mind because I was so fascinated with AI and all the solutions that it could present, not just to anybody in the real estate sector, but really any business owner at scale at that point. I partnered up with AMZU Consulting as well to help with implementation. They've been fantastic. What they're able to offer, I have yet to come across a project that they could not tackle. And going back to, again, some of those solutions, you mentioned market analysis, researching trends. You also mentioned searching for partners. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's a dating game. Typically, we use capital markets groups that'll come in and help us put together a deck. They'll take the conversations they've had in the past with equity and debt sources to see what they're looking for in the market, and then it's just a game of concentration, just pairing up parties that need to be. I mean, I don't know if that is going to be replaced by AI. I would imagine it could be. I'm sure AI could just put you input data and puts a deck together for you and sends it out on its way, and maybe manages the interested parties that come in and tracks all that. I mean, that seems quite possible. And
Yes, it certainly is.
for any of my for my for my guys out there at JLL, Cushman and Wakefield, Colliers, Newmark, but you never know what the future is going to look like.
No, 100%. I agree. And we're already starting to see, a lot of that now in the AI realm. And just going back to, again, searching for partners, is that something you do just, whether it's LinkedIn, the phone, email, or do you have any type of automation for that? Like any type of outreach system in place?
No, we've got Agora that we just got set up with. Frankly, I'm not the one who's spearheading that, so um, I know that as long as we're inputting the contact data,
Mhm.
that we can get that out to groups. We've got a deck that we're putting together now. It should be done by the end of the week. We've got 5 or 6 ground up shallow bay industrial projects we're going to be doing in Reno, Vegas, and Phoenix.
Mhm.
So this is going to be the beta test. We're going to send it out there to the universe and see if we can catch a fish. We're very particular about who we want to do business with because it's a relationship. It's a marriage. You're going to be together for 2, 3, 4 years. You're going to have challenges, and you need to be able to communicate well and be problem solvers, and you need to be kind of on the same page with regards to gratitude and why you're doing it. And frankly, we enjoy people and we enjoy the business, and we like to find like-minded individuals and companies that just are alchemists. You know, they just want to build stuff from the ground and
Mhm.
have pride in what they do and make profits for the investors.
Yeah, definitely. And that's very exciting. You said it's in the beta testing right now. Is there a projected release date when this is all going to start to come to fruition?
I would say in the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay, yeah, right around the corner then. Excellent.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so you said again, the scope of it is basically just to try to, again, find the right partners for that marriage, so to speak, in those particular areas you mentioned, like Phoenix, Boise, and the Vegas locations.
Phoenix, Reno, and if I said Boise, I made a mistake. It's Reno, Las Vegas, and Phoenix.
Okay, very good. And, again, speaking ahead to the future a little bit, you just mentioned the beta testing going live in 2 weeks. If we zoom out a little bit and take a look at the next 6 to, 12 months, that might be a little bit shorter given the structure of some of the deals you do. They typically tend to last longer. But if we look at 6 to 12 months, is there, any particular goals, milestones, or anything else coming up for you in the business that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, we're leasing up big projects. We've got a couple of million square foot projects that we have in Phoenix, and they're finally getting leased up. I mean, as an example, I think we leased maybe 80,000 square feet in 2025, but now we're at 2026, and I think we're maybe 1,200,000 or 1,300,000 square feet. So I think we're going to get those two projects leased up here in this calendar year and dispose of them next year, which is, those will be $200 million sales.
Mhm.
We're just finalizing getting some financing for a $750 million mixed use project in Gilbert, Arizona called the Ranch.
Mhm.
I think that in the next 6 months we will have finance and we'll be going through our entitlements on this next wave of shallow bay projects that we have going on. And we're going to be breaking ground on a 550,000 square footer with Rockefeller in Phoenix. So we have a lot of exciting things coming on. I really need to be looking to 2027 and figuring out what other starts we're going to be having then. And it could be possible that you've got the rebalance of the supply and demand for the big box stuff, of which I would consider anything over 200,000 square feet. We love building those, and we might
Mhm.
be finding new markets to enter into, maybe tertiary markets, or we might be just back at it in the core markets that we play in right now. So it's an exciting business. There's always something going on. There's always expansion and retraction, and sometimes it can be painful, and sometimes it's over exuberant. But I don't think I could be in any other industry.
Yeah, honestly, like you said, it can take time, years, maybe, but when you talk about the reward, what you get for the work you put in, it sounds, unbelievable, definitely worthwhile there. So I commend you on that. And you mentioned some tertiary markets as well, too. I know where you're located mostly right now, but is there any place, you have in mind where you would like to expand to if the opportunity presents itself?
Yeah, when I say tertiary, I'd say I look at a metropolis that's maybe got 2 million or more people, and then I just go on an outer ring. You try to figure out where the transportation routes are between major cities, and then
Hmm.
put yourself there. So that's what I mean by tertiary markets. There are some markets that I've been in before that I probably won't go back to, i.e., Boise and Tucson. Um, but we're looking at Nashville. Looking outside of Austin. So we'll see. It's a matter of you really a lot of things have to come together. You have to go put teams together in those sub markets and get everyone ready, and all you have to do is kind of plug and play with a piece of dirt. But it's challenging to come in from out of town into a new place and be able to identify and secure a good land site. Because there's a lot of locals that have been there for decades that, there has to be a reason why they passed up on it. Also, you can get hometowned on entitlements as well. Sometimes
Hmm.
people don't like strangers coming into town.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships will definitely play a big role there for somebody who's an outsider, so to speak. And yeah, you mentioned the East Coast a little bit there with Nashville. What about you ever had anything going on in the Northeast where I am, like near Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, that area?
Too long of a plane flight.
Oh, fair
Love
enough.
it. I mean, New Jersey's great. You know, if you can get anything outside of Boston, that's great. Carolinas have been doing real well for a long time. The Eastern Seaboard there has been great. It's just that is outside of my scope. You know, it's outside of my reach. You know, if we were a bigger company like Prologis or Panattoni or one of those big guys that have huge teams and presence in different markets, would be a lot easier.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. I mean, you've already got an incredible thing going on right now in your current territory. So, why mess up a good thing if it's not broke? Don't try to fix it. Was just curious for what your take is, on the landscape of, territories outside of where you're normally used to. So thank you for sharing your insight on that. And, Mike, as we're coming up on time here, one thing I always like to ask towards the tail end of the podcast is, for anybody who's looking to get into this business today, what would be any, words of wisdom that you have for them, any guidance?
Go find another business. No, I'm just kidding. The important things are to do a lot of reading and doing a lot of research, kind of see who the players are and see what they're doing, get an
Mhm,
understanding of the different asset classes. And what's interesting about this industry, there's so many different roles to play in it through the process, whether it's insurance, it's construction, whether it's the title industry, legal, leasing, capital markets. There's tons of consulting advisory positions are available that support this industry. So really, you have to have a good idea of where your personality and aptitude kind of fits in. So you need to do the research. The other thing is getting with a company and some individuals that are going to mentor you. That's going to, amplify your ramp up period by being with someone who's got, a depth of knowledge and they take an interest in you. Because, if people don't like you, they're really not going to take an interest in you. So I think self development is really important when getting into this business and really understanding the emotional intelligence part of it and understanding the information in this industry and then building the relationships to help you get to where you want to go. But it's exciting industry. There's a lot of different aspects of it, and it's a very social business. So there's lots of networking, there's lots of getting together, celebrating, there's a lot of drinking, golfing, parties, conventions. It's a very social business. And so you'll see that there's a very common thread between most people in here. You'll have the super social salespeople, and then you'll have the analytical people. And you got to figure out where you are in that spectrum.
mhm. Yeah, I kind of fall between the middle myself. I mean, I still love to go out, have a good time, despite the fact that I'm 35 right now and certainly can't go out as much as I used to or like to. But I'm also a bit more on the analytical side myself. That's one of the reasons why AI fascinated me as well. So I definitely understand that. And having the right mentorship and the right niche as well, too, like finding where you fit in, like you had said, definitely all plays in. That's another common sentiment I've had here as well whenever I ask that question. So again, thank you for your insight. And Mike, this has really been outstanding. You've delivered deep institutional insight and a clear vision for the future of industrial real estate. It sounds like you've got a lot of incredible projects going on. So, really looking forward to seeing what happens there. Wishing you the best. And before we wrap up here, for our listeners, if anybody wants to learn more about you, potentially even work with you, where would be the best place to do so? Get more information.
I'm on LinkedIn. I got a website, www.indiecapinc.com.
Mhm.
And, love to collaborate. Love to mentor. I'm always here just to chat about the business. And if we can do business together, even better.
All right, very good. I'll be sure to share that once this episode is posted here. So thank you again, Mike. That was excellent. Appreciate you. Hope you have a good one.
Thanks for reaching out. Bye bye.